Before we get started with our guest speaker for the day and all the fun stuff, we got a couple cool people that are going to talk about some cool stuff. Clearly, I like the word cool. So first of all, we have the OCOB Career Readiness Center for peer advisor little promo stuff. So Kate, it is all you. I just realized I have to stop screen sharing. You have slides, right? So I gotta.
We don't have slides. It's just a super quick kind of info thing because part of the requirements for the application is to go to an information session.
Great.
So
Okay, I'm just gonna stop my share so we can like look at each other's faces and have it more intimate. There we go. That's kind of nice.
All right. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for letting me come and talk to you all today about peer advising. I just wanted to let you guys know that we are now. The application for peer advising is due this Friday, January 15th. So it's coming up, and the requirements for the application are just you have to answer some questions, kind of just to allow us to get to know you a little bit better, and then to submit a resume and cover letter. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me once I'm done giving my little spiel about peer advising. Additionally, you will have to go to a information session. We have two more of these. One of them, we have two more of these. The first one will be this Thursday, January 14th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the second one will be Friday, January 15th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And again, these information sessions are mandatory. This is just so that you can be as, know as much about the role before applying for it as you can be. So after you submit the job application, there are 3 rounds of interviews. And this interview process, at least when I was going through it, I remember it was a little bit intimidating. However, it also gave me a really great experience of just going through interviews and, just going through interviews. It's always a really great, really great opportunity to prepare for, finding an internship outside of Cal Poly. I guess to kind of tell you guys more about what the job actually is, peer advisors have the goal of making OCOB students have the best academic experience possible. So that includes taking appointments with students. You guys may have had an appointment with a peer advisor before, and we kind of help students with course scheduling, as well as just helping them with any forms that need to be processed, and just kind of informing students about course requirements, as well as just like other degree requirements, and as well as helping area chairs with anything that they need. So we are a really great resource for students, and the job is extremely rewarding because helping students out, especially during registration season and all of that. It's been a really great experience, and it's given me a lot of skills in customer service, as well as just working in a professional job. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me now. I'm putting a link in the chat to our page on our website with all of the information about the hiring process. So this includes Zoom links for the information sessions, as well as the peer advising application. And then this kind of website also includes the job description if you want a little bit more of an in-depth description about that.
I was just wondering, do you have to go to just one information session, or do you have to attend multiple?
Oh, you only have to go to one information session, and it's just a 1-hour presentation kind of to explain more about the responsibilities that the job entails.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and one more thing, how much does it pay?
So it starts at $14 an hour, and then I believe as you kind of like, if you're, for example, if you're a lead peer advisor, you could get a raise to, I believe it's 17 an hour. So it's anywhere between 14 to 17 an hour, but starting salary would be 14.
Okay, thank you.
If I'm applying to be a peer mentor, can I also apply to be a peer advisor, or do I have to pick one or the other?
Yeah, so you can apply for both. However, so a policy is that you can only have one volunteer position with one paid position. And so I know that some students will do like peer advising as well as I think it might be I'm spacing on the it's peer ambassador because that's like a volunteer position. However, you can't hold two campus like, jobs because there's a like basically there's this requirement that you can't have two campus jobs that will require you to work more than 20 hours a week. And so if you have both those requirements, that wouldn't. So basically, yeah, you would have to end up ultimately choosing between two OCOB jobs because peer advisors work about 10 to 15 hours a week as of now. And so it's definitely a commitment, but it's, in my opinion, definitely worth it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sweet. If anyone has any other questions, I'm sure Kate, if you could drop an email maybe that they can reach out to you, or use the link in chat. That should
Yeah,
be.
yeah, you guys can reach out here. I'll put the office email in here. That's, I mean, yeah, I just put the office's email in the chat. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Kate, for reaching out with this opportunity. We love our friends in OCOB that help us have an easier college life. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for letting me present.
For sure. All right, so moving on, we have one more quick announcement. So we have this new thing that we do to give y'all some opportunities out there to get involved with startups. I'm posting a link in chat right now. If you have a startup idea and are looking for teammates or anything related and want to pitch for a couple minutes at a CPE meeting, then fill out that form and we will take care of you. Today we have one person that will be presenting. And so I'm gonna give him the stage and his slides. And Jordy, go for it, man.
All right, thanks, Armand.
For sure.
Let's see here. Okay. Well, I think it's safe to say that we've all run into headaches like these when searching for some student necessities like housing or textbooks or tutoring. But why do we waste time, money, and energy, the three things that college students lack the most? It seems like we have the resources available, right? We have the bookstore, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, class workshops. That should be plenty. These platforms are not centered around students, and we always end up being treated as the customer. We buy from the bookstore and we sell back to it for their profit. We spend hours sifting through the Facebook housing page because Facebook profits off of our attention, not finding us what we need. And rather than student tutors making their own hours and choosing their own clients, Cal Poly just does it for them. Could you move on? So introducing Collegiate. Finally, there's a platform built by students for students. You need the book for Chem 217 with France paired with the solutions manual. Look it up using filters like department, course number, or professor. When you're done, easily sell it to another student looking for the exact same thing. Need a month-to-month lease within 3 miles of campus with preferably only 2 roommates? No problem. You need a tutor for Business 214, but you're only available on Tuesday afternoons? It's done. We're all college students. We all have the same basic set of needs, and there's over 20 million of us in the US alone. So let's not overcomplicate this. Let Collegiate be the one-stop shop for all your college needs. We've already been accepted into the Hatchery program with CIE, and we're currently looking for software engineers to help build the interface of the application. We're also looking for students to help market the app and conduct customer research for optimization. So if you're looking for a senior project or a great resume builder, look no further. Whether you have concrete skills to contribute to the team or you just think it sounds like a fun project to be a part of, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or Slack or LinkedIn, which I will drop in the chat right now. Thanks, guys.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Jordy. Like I said, if you want this opportunity to present at a CPE meeting, then fill out that form in chat and we will take care of you. All right. So I think I covered everything that I need to. And right, Kaylin, can you give me a little thumbs up if I am? Fantastic. Great. Sometimes I forget. Without further ado, the guest speaker for today, the man of the show, the spotlight, the big deal. I'm gonna let him do the introduction and talk about his background, what he does, and everything. It's gonna be great. And yeah, he'll start off. Yeah, so just a little rundown. Sorry, mine's going crazy. So he's gonna give a little intro, talk about what he does, what his company does, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A session. Sounds great? Fantastic. Aaron, the stage is yours. Thank you for joining us. It's all you.
Great, awesome. Well, it's good to see you all. I feel like I was just in college once upon a time, but then I realized my 38th birthday is this week, and I'm like, God, I'm old. But you know what? I've done a lot in that time. So just very quickly, I'm with a company called 500 Startups. If you don't know it, it's one of the top accelerators, I believe the top accelerator in the world. We've made 2,500 investments across 40 plus countries. And I've been with 500 in some form or fashion since 2014, when I put my 7th startup through the accelerator, a company called Roost, Airbnb for storage and parking space. Don't ever do that, terrible business. But I got out alive. That's the most important thing. Right now, I am the director of platform at 500, which basically means it's my job to figure out what it is our over 6,000 founders need, whether that's specific tools, connections, ways that we can help people who scale at scale. Yeah, that's right. And so I have seen all the shit, right? And I'm not going to look like your normal investor. I tend to say, you know, this is very much like I'm not your regular mom. I'm a cool mom, right? I don't see myself as an investor. I see myself as a founder advocate, because I've only ever started companies, with the exception of the jobs that I held while I was getting my undergrad and graduate degrees at Arizona State University, the Harvard of the West. I literally don't remember my junior year, so that should tell you where my focus was. And all of that to say that I've pretty much been doing entrepreneurial stuff, only that ever since. I've started 7 companies, raised a total of about $20 million. I've had co-founders commit suicide. I've had one exit. I've had other bunch of stuff that's like gotten me into all sorts of trouble. And at one point in time, I was pretty sure I was going to federal prison. So I've seen a lot of things. And the reason why I like working at 500 is you're allowed to be who you are, right? Not everyone wants to dance with this crazy person. I was born and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is, of course, the startup capital of nowhere. A lot of cows, that's about it. And I knew that I was a city person, and I also knew that I was a technology person. So I made it as quickly as I could to San Francisco not too long ago, about 2012, so what, 9 years. I'm a gay male, and when I was going and raising capital as a gay male here in this town, San Francisco of all places, there were multiple people who told me that I didn't look like the kind of person that they wanted to invest in. And I say that as a white male. You don't look like the kind of person that, you know, we would see leading this kind of company. And that's why I see myself as a founder advocate, because I think that's absolute bullshit. I don't believe that a person should be evaluated by how they look or how they even act. It should be their attachment to their idea, its viability in the marketplace. And that's why 500 called to me as an investor when I was putting my last company through the accelerator, because it was the kind of place I got the sense where I could be myself, but get like real talk around, you know, you go out there and you pitch and everyone says, hey, you're doing great, but no one will give you a check. So like, what the fuck does that mean? Right? You know, like, is anyone going to tell me anything, or is we just going to like do the VC no, which is, yeah, sure, keep me updated, right? It's the VC's job never to say no. So what I liked about 500 is very, very come as you are. And that's what I endeavor to give our population, not just of people who, you know, we've given money to, but people who are, want to be part of our program each and every day. So it's always a journey. Like I said, you know, if I could do one thing differently, I probably would have broken into VC a little bit earlier, because there's at least 2 companies I just flatly wouldn't have done if I would have had better perspective. There are, what's nice about sitting where I sit now, in addition to not having to worry about like paying overhead and runway and that kind of stuff, which definitely ages you, I've had this gray pretty much ever since I was 22 because of my stress. I've actually unaged since I took a job for the woman, so that's fine by me. But all of that to say that the best thing that you can do if you're hoping to become an entrepreneur is get out into the world and figure out problems, right, that you want to solve and feel attached to solving. Understanding that, you know, the most common types of businesses I see from people in their early 20s are solving problems at colleges and solving problems to do with travel, because those are the things that you have to do and the things that you want to do, right? That's it. I'll tell you that of the unicorns and billion-dollar companies that are out there, the average starting age of the founder at the time of formation was 35, which tells me I'm a little late to get my unicorn on. I've still got one startup left, but I want to make sure it's the right one, right? You know, I've made a lot of mistakes. But the point is, you know, there's definitely, if entrepreneurship and starting a company and getting funded by serious VCs is the way to go for you, like that's the thing that you want, it would behoove you to find people who are going through that, either by working with them or connecting with them in some way, or get into groups, places, spaces where you can learn what is the difference between this and that. So for example, the gentleman who just pitched this bookstore opportunity, I have no doubt that it's great, and I have, you know, every belief that it'll succeed. Is it VC backable? No, it's too small. Like the people I take money from are literal kings and queens. So if I take their dollar and I go and I invest it someplace, it's very rarely if 500 is this idea a good idea or a bad idea. It's like, which idea is going to make me the most money? So that's where like the overall size and scale of the marketplace, and whether or not it's new or novel and these other sorts of things, lots of different sorts of considerations. And the sooner you can get into a place like a small VC firm, or, you know, even an accelerator, incubator, co-working space, and just ask a bunch of questions, I probably could shave 5 or 6 years off of my journey getting to where I am today if I just would have had someone say, yeah, you're looking in the right place, but you're saying the wrong stuff. What you want to do is you want to go over there. So try to find a mentorship or program or some sort of person who can like mentor you directly if you think that this is something that you want, and learn that there are all sorts of money out there. Not everyone has to get money from a giant VC, right? You know, like you can start this online book store thing, no problem. I mean, Amazon did it. Look what happened to them. Results are not typical, right? But you can still make a totally comfortable life without ever taking a check from a serious VC. And there's lots of ways to think about the types of money that you can take and what that means for you and what that means for your business. So having someone that you can trust to take you through these kinds of questions and educate you on, if you choose this is what could happen, and if you choose that, this is what could happen, is something I would recommend highly. Last thing before I dive into some of these questions here, and if you have questions, please jam them into the chat. If I had to do it all over again, I would have gotten a mentorship from someone sooner. I didn't put together a personal board of advisors, people that I, on a solely professional basis, went to and asked for, like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, what do you think? Until I was in, I don't know, 32 or 33, which is relatively recent, right? And that's because I'm stubborn as fuck. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I know how to hog tie, and I have a shotgun. Okay, like I don't need help from nobody, right? But that doesn't really help you in the startup space, right? Getting there on your own is like very much, I'm a Capricorn thing, right? But that is not how you succeed quickly. And when you get to my age, God, I can't believe I'm saying that. You think back, God, wouldn't it have been better if I wouldn't have spent those years wrestling problems I didn't need to wrestle because I got better advice from smarter people because I reached out. And so, you know, you will go to the reason why people mentor is because they feel an attachment to you, a community you represent, or they have like an irrational attachment to the problem solution that you're putting out there. So for example, I give most of my free time, such that it is, to LGBTQ causes, because that's the group that I identify with, right? And then we've got, you know, VCs who are come from different, you know, all sorts of different backgrounds, and that's the areas that they focus on. So yeah, don't be shy about asking for mentorship from folks. Make sure you want what you're asking for, right? Just because someone's got a big name or is famous doesn't make them supremely qualified. I think actually less so, because they're more focused on generating the buzz than they are on, you know, giving you right and fact-checked answers. But if someone doesn't respond, you know, don't be defeated by that. You know, asking for mentorship is a lot like asking for investor cash, right? It's going to take a lot of no's before you get to your yes, but when you get to yes, you know, you're infinitely better for it. Okay, I think I've sufficiently stalled while we've got some questions to answer. So
yeah, I will call on people to, you know, just get people involved in the discourse. All right, so Matthew, I'm going to start with your question real quick, but I want to generalize it to just everything, and then I'll add, like, you know, the specific thing you're asking for. So Matthew asked, what are the main things VC looks for in a software startup? If you can answer just like, what are the main things, like what do you look for in general, and then get to the software, if there's a difference for like software and not.
Yeah, what I will tell you, because like everyone's worried how to build a unicorn, but before you build a unicorn, you got to get your first check, right? So what really shocked me, and 500 is industry agnostics and somewhat stage agnostic, though we of course specialize in pre-seed, seed, all the way up to A. So early compared to most of our PE and VC friends out there in the space. We're also geographic agnostic, so the problems and the way that you go about solving those problems in, say, Kuwait is obviously different than what we do here in the United States. So all of that to say that I am a generalist, right? And so generally speaking, the thing that a VC looks for in a startup really is the founders themselves. Because what I'll tell you is that by the time you are 2, 3, 4 years old as a startup, right? The way that you're solving the problem that you set out to change or set out to address, if not the problem and your understanding of it itself, has changed 3, 4, 5 times, right? The people that you will have hired on, you know, your first round of hires are not going to be the same people that are going to be there 2, 3 years later. The investors who are giving you advice, some of it bullshit, some of it real, you know, these things are going to come and go, but what does not change ever is the founder, right? So when I meet someone who looks like the kind of guy who's going to go take the money that I'm about to invest and buy a hot tub with it, because that's what he wants for his cool office, and I can pick him out of a crowd, I've got a sixth sense for this shit, that's a hard pass for me, right? Because that is indicative of a certain kind of judgment, right? And it's important to note that where 500 sits in like the various financial products that you as a financial products consumer are shopping for, we are money with training, right? If you already have, you know, dozens of backgrounds under your, dozens of startups under your belt because you've worked at them or you've started them or whatever, you probably don't need 500. So we're the type of people that we work with. I'm not just looking for good ideas and solid founders. I'm looking for people who have questions, know what they know what they don't know, and can be coachable. Otherwise, you're taking a lot of money and I'm taking a lot of equity for something that you're not going to use, and that's just bad for business, right? So when I say, you know, what VC looks for in the software startup, yeah, you know, it is of course, like, what is the problem? What is the solution? All this other kind of stuff. But if I don't think that you as a founder know how to spot problems or address problems or even admit when you're wrong, like, that's a red flag. Because most of the founders who are out there, like CEOs will let go of their business probably by year 2 or 3, right? Their one job almost exclusively is sort of guiding product, but mostly raising money. And more importantly, putting their investors that they take on to their cap table to work for the problems that they need to help solve. So that means you've got to be comfortable saying, hey, this is the thing that we're working on. This is how it works. We're not sure what we're looking at, blah, 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 blah. And I, as an investor, literally have an invested interest in making sure that we're going to help solve this human resources problem that you have. We're going to find somebody with technical expertise who consults you on this, get them on your board of advisors, whatever it is you need, right? But a stubborn person, who I was, right? Bad Aaron, right? If you're not the kind of person who can raise your hand, ask a question, you know, on a personal development level, it sort of suggests that maybe you are a little bit juvenile. On a professional development level, you know, it costs time, and time is money, and money is your equity, money is my dilution. And so the quicker that you can spot problems and go to the right places to go and get them fixed, the more money of mine you save, the more equity of yours you save, and the more profitable the business can be in a longer term. So just talking about like this pre-seed like area of investment, I'm really looking for a founding team that has some hint of technical skill. Like if you come to me and saying we're starting a new cryptocurrency, there sure as shit better be some kind of developer on your team. Back when the crypto gold rush, what, 2-3 years ago, you could get $1 million with a white paper. It was crazy. But the number of people who came by with absolutely no experience in crypto or coding at all, which is exactly what that requires, would probably shock you. So you want to make sure that you can speak to, this is our problem, this is why we're connected to our problem, and these are the technical skills we have that are going to give us insights into solving this thing better than anybody else. Matt, I know that's something of a non-answer, but let me add a couple more things. If you've got traction or product market fit, that's always a good de-risker. So it suggests that there are people in the market who are willing to buy the things that you want to sell. However, depending on what space you're in, like if you're in hardware, getting to your first, paid customer that's not a prototype is like a long and expensive journey. That advice is going to be a lot different than somebody who's like, I've got an app that makes cats dance, right? So that's two very different things. So if you want to put a little bit about what kind of startup you have, I'd be happy to answer something a bit more specific.
Sweet, thanks for that. Edward, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I asked too, so I'm just going to scroll up to the first one.
It was about articles, books.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I know one question I like to ask people is, have there been any messages that you've taken from books or articles, along the way, that have really just you felt contributed to your success or changed your view on everything?
Yes. Well, first of all, here you go. Here's a link to my library. Second of all, I went to Arizona State, so it shouldn't shock you that I don't put a lot of like trust in like the academia of it all. I'm not sure. It worked for me, does not work for everybody, right? But what I can tell you is that it's good to get read up on fundamentals for things that don't change. Right? So things like, how does venture capital basically work? What is the difference between a convertible note and a price round? Things of this nature. That is something to me that is a book-worthy topic. But within the 500 sphere, I'm one of our chief growth hackers, whatever the hell that means. And it basically means I can get you 1,000 customers for $1, but it's going to involve some shady shit. There was an actual time in my history where I moved into the house where Craigslist was founded because I assumed their IP was whitelisted into their servers, and it was. And I took care of what the things that I needed to do by going in and essentially hijacking their internet without them knowing for at least a couple of years. So like that is growth hacking, right? I'm not gonna be able to teach that in a book, because by the time I publish something in a book or even take, chances to get out there and like get the bleeding edge of how SEO works or how Facebook ad optimization works or anything like that, it's by the time it's at print, it's no good to you. So depending on the type of thing you want to learn, I would go different places for it. But really the general rule of thumb is this a thing that's evolving very quickly, or is this like the fundamentals, the basics? I'm trying to think of a book that would be good for college Aaron to read. And honestly, it's probably around time management and focus. Because, and I don't have a good book for that actually, and I should. Actually, I take that back. Scaling Up. Scaling Up is a pretty good book that I would recommend, and it also kind of reads like an instruction manual. There's a lot of like bigger company problem solution type stuff. It sort of like assumes that you have a staff of like a dozen or more or that kind of thing. But there are some ways to think through time management in that book that I found extremely helpful. And the reason why that matters is that when you are a startup, you are signing up for my work is never done, right? And so your number one skill is not deciding what to do, because you have nothing but good ideas, right? It's deciding what not to do. That's the real skill, because you have to fully execute on one idea, analyze the outcome, and use that to inform a future path, right? In order to grow at all. And if you're a startup who has, say, 5 quarters, right? And you spend 1 quarter on 5 different things, you don't really actually complete a task or learn something in full. You just kind of have a little bit more information and you're out of your quarters, right? You want to like try to figure out, okay, how do I prioritize and schedule things like tests, right? How do I even put together a good test? Whether that's like, product market fit type of testing on the early end, or, a campaign optimization test on the later end. You have to fully execute on these things and learn from that. And then use that information in a feedback loop to inform the future next steps of the business. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing a little bit on a lot. And it feels like you're not going anywhere because you aren't, right? You have to take a firm step towards something, prove, disprove that theory, move on to the next thing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Alistair, go for it, my man. Welcome back. Alistair.
Oh, there we go. I was muted. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you being here. You're very authentic when you talk over Zoom, which I think is a unique thing to be able to do. I was wondering, you talked about VCs looking for products, companies that have the greatest potential to achieve the greatest return. And I was wondering, are there any instances that you've witnessed yourself where you've kind of maybe missed the boat, the VC has missed the boat on something that could have, had a large impact, but maybe not great returns?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question to, because I am a sucker for a lost cause, right? And I don't care about making money, and I never have. Probably in the wrong space for work, if that's the case. But I think the question like larger is like, how do VCs square, making 1000x versus societal goodness? Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah.
I think in these these times that we live in, you're seeing businesses start to realize that they have a voice in all this. I've been heartened, although I don't want to get into politics, but like I've been heartened that businesses are sort of standing up for, perspectives, because it is clear to my eye, at least, that the way that we govern in this country, needs some fixing, because a lot of our politics shouldn't be put on the founders or the corporate class who have conflicted interests in the things that they would fund or not fund, invest in or not invest in. That kind of debate has a place, and the business realm is not one of them. But I think you're beginning to see people, for lack of a better political system, businesses rather, try to think through, okay, well, who are we, and how does that translate to our brand, and how does that translate to profitability and success, while also addressing things that need to be addressed. What I'll tell you is that there's a lot of traction, a lot of appetite on the LP level. LP means limited partner. These are the people that I take money from, right? So they write me $10 million, $30 million, $50 million checks. I'm heartened to know that they have an increased interest in impact as a part of their full investment thesis, where it used to be you would only see these people who do impact projects working at specifically impact funds, right? So impact is starting to make its way into all forms and manner of investing, and there are different ways that people talk about impact. So there's ESG, which stands for environment, sustainability, and governance. We're the first VC fund to say that our startups have to adhere to those kind of guidelines, which means that they don't manufacture weapons, they don't use child labor ever, you know, all sorts of stuff on the social justice side, but also on the, you know, they address things like pay disparity between C-level people and people, you know, at the bottom. So there's lots of ways to think about like impact and such. But yeah, I think there are lots of opportunities out there that VCs miss because they aren't attractive enough from a financial perspective. That said, it depends on what the goal is, right? If your goal is to make that 1000x and you're the kind of person who doesn't care, then impact isn't really attractive to you and it never could have been, right? I think the answer is probably someplace in the middle. I tend to be of the, you know, for every investment I make where I'm like, yeah, this is greedy Aaron talking, and I'm definitely gonna make a lot of money here, I try to counterbalance that with one that's like, you know what, let me take this shot on this founder, on this idea and see where this goes. So that's kind of like how I personally balance that equation, but I wish we had better options as a VC community to think through that, better leaders to follow, better precedents to model ourselves after.
Yeah, new model to create for sure.
Get to it.
Benjamin, go for it.
So you were saying that a mistake of yours was not having your own like personal advisory board. Who would you recommend to put in that board? Because currently for me, as a first-year student, I would say gladly say that my parents are a part of it, but also a CEO from a internship that I did over the summer, and I'm very proud of that one. But are there any more recommendations?
Yeah, I would think of it this way. Find somebody, when we think of mentors, we think like, I must have, you know, Tim Cook, right? Which is silly. Find someone who is a year farther down the path than you are, right? That tells you this is somebody who's going to give you the tactical, like, don't do this, do that, right? And groups like this one, I think are probably good places to discover people who are a little bit farther down the path than you, right? Because these small choices, which end up costing you large amounts of time, right? That's a place to like optimize your own personal life and your own personal schedule and the way that you think about learning. So someone who's going through that and has completed it recently or is just a little bit farther out the gate than you, that can still be a mentor, right? You know, even though they may not be able to give you like the full life picture, they can at least help you think through some of the immediate problems that you're trying to solve for. So if you've got one vision of a person who's a mentor that's like maybe a year or two ahead of you, then find someone who is 5 to 10 years ahead of you, right? And then what you do is the person who's like out there in the world, like if you wanted to become a VC, for instance, I know of nobody in the VC space with the exception of myself, because I literally fell into it and I don't even know how that's possible, who didn't get into VC by knowing a guy or knowing a gal, right? It's a very tough community to break into. And the reason why is because everyone goes immediately for Christine. That's my CEO, right? Everyone wants to talk to her. She's a CEO. She's the most visible. You know where you go? Go to the associate. Go to the analyst, right? They already did the hard work and can tell you all about what worked and what didn't, right? And nobody is asking these people, would you be my mentor? So if someone comes to you and says, would you be my mentor? And you're like, well, fuck, I see myself as totally junior. How could I possibly be a mentor? Of course, you're going to say yes, because A, it's flattering, right? But B, you know, the advice that a partner at a firm is going to give you is not advice you can use. You don't need to get, we're not talking about, you know, just like I started at the top, we're not talking about starting a unicorn company today. We're talking about getting your first check. So don't get caught up in the Jesus, how do I get in front of Tim Cook, right, type of thinking. Just talk to people who are just a little bit farther ahead and understand that, you know, everyone I know, at least within our network, and again, you know, I prioritize my networks around people who are going to be genuine and are genuinely thoughtful and, you know, caring and tend to want to give back to a community, because that's a big part of how 500 works. Is like, I probably know at least 3,000 of our founders on a first name basis, which is like crazy to me, but like they all have my phone number and oftentimes they will call, and sometimes it's at 4 a.m. and yes, I get up and I take that call, but like that's a part of who we are as a people. Everyone who is asked, hey, would you be a mentor to me, in my opinion, unless they've got a genuine, like, just cannot fit it into their schedule, should say yes, right? Because someone did that for them at some point in time. Someone helped them get that call. And so you get where you need to get going. You get up to, like, you know, you just broke into VC or a small firm, or you're interning someplace. And the next time someone asks you for a bit of help the next generation up too. That's how we break in, right? We need to get as many people inside of the places, these chambers where money is controlled, as possible, because that's how we start affecting change as a society, right? Right now, it's just a very small group, a small bubble of folks. So the more democratized we can make access to capital, the better off we'll all be. And I already said I wasn't going to get into politics, but my point, someone super early, someone mid down the stream, and if you want to go for that partner level, fine. Just understand that until, you know, you'll have to have a lot of conversations or send a lot of emails before you'll get a partner who doesn't know anything about you at a major VC firm to say yes. But don't be defeated by that. Aim several rungs down the ladder, and you'll find that the information is much more practical and useful anyway.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I have a couple of people in mind.
Matthew?
So obviously with businesses, anything is going to have some amount of risk. And so what are the main factors that you might stay away from that people might either show or that the company might have in terms of their riskiness?
Yes. So startup land is a weird place where we don't really care about profit, right? Because there's general speaking here, without knowing anything about your business, but the reason I don't care about profit is oftentimes you're not, as a early stage founder, that is somebody who's been working on a software for say 3 years or less, you're not going to be able to produce a full suite of tools that someone's going to want to pay for, right? So if you do put up a paywall or some sort of money or value exchange, oftentimes the people who are paying for it are not your target audience, because they're using it for just one thing, and really your software shouldn't do just one thing. It should start to land grab vertically or land grab horizontally, right? So what I look for in terms of thinking about risk as it relates to investment is who is this person's target customer, right? What is the pain that you're solving for this person, right? And well, how crowded is the space, of course, but show me that you have evidence of a repeatable type of customer who's going to go for this, right? And by that I mean, you know, if you've got, I'm a lead generator. I was just a spammer hacker for about a decade. I ran one of the largest spam operations in the United States. If you wanted me to get you 2,000 paying customers in 45 minutes, I could absolutely do that. If you wanted those customers to stick around for any more than a couple weeks, that's a different conversation, right? So you can get a bunch of paying people to pay for anything. What you want is a customer profile, customer type that, you know, because what I hear when someone says I need investment, I know immediately they're going to spend it on staff, they're going to spend it on marketing. I need to know that every dollar I put into the slot machine is going to pay back 5. And the only way that I can feel good about that is you've got a customer profile that you've demonstrated. This is for people who are junior SDRs, right? Junior sales development reps. And they love this because it solves this one specific pain point for them. Because people pay for painkillers before they pay for vitamins, right? This kind of stuff is how you go through and you can justify what it is your product or your service does. And if you can show me that you can do it on a repeatable basis, and again, a customer profile, a well-defined customer profile with evidence is the best way to go about doing that. That makes the investment comparatively de-risked, less risky. It de-risks the investment. There we go. Long day. Does this answer your question, Matthew?
Thank you. Yep, it does. Thank you.
All right, sweet. Aaron, we have about 3 questions. We have 3 questions left with a little less than 10 minutes, just for you to know. So let's get to those. Edward, go for it. Shoot.
So one of the things I think is my biggest weakness is sometimes it feels like I'm ready to go and I want to kind of get something started, but it's the idea itself that I'm lacking. I'm just wondering if you have any advice on that.
That's a toughie. This describes me. So I'm probably the worst person to ask this question to. But what I can tell you, I would get out there. If you can't determine what it is that you're passionate about, right? What's going to keep you animated, then get out to certain places and just start eliminating different verticals piece by piece. I tried fintech. It's gross. I hate regulations because there's lots of tech constraints around it, and you've got to get, you got to deal with the government. So fuck that shit. I don't like fintech. Next, right? Go do a 60-day internship or something like, or even just like work someplace for free if you have that kind of time, you can afford it. But just start doing sort of like a process of elimination. Because what you'll quickly learn is that there are certain sectors or certain like spaces where there are attitudes, right? Like fintech is in my experience very much a bro culture, and you see a lot of people, in that fintech space that aren't going to have, strong, in many cases, strong female leadership, right? If that's important to you, right? Aren't going to have a lot of representation from, different groups. I'm not speaking about fintech specifically there, but like, different sectors have different like attitudes and behaviors. And so that would be one way to think about doing it. Alternatively, I do not recommend until you're on your 4th or 5th startup that you should ever start a company alone. When you are the boss, people don't tell you the truth, right? No matter how ridiculous I was as a founder, and I mean, like, I'm the guy who comes in and like bizarre outfits and that kind of stuff, specifically so people know that I'm approachable. No one's going to tell the boss I'm worried about where we're going with this, or I need feedback on that. So maybe what you bring to the table is the everything else, and you just need to start out there and do some co-founder dating. Right? Find somebody who's got that idea, something that you can get excited about, and then put the full force of your skills toward. What I will tell you is you don't want to work for a startup if you don't care about what the startup's doing. My last startup, Roast Airbnb for storage space, I was a fucking mercenary. The only reason I signed on is like, I can get you traffic for like weeks, right? But at the end of the day, I found 2 years in that I had a hard time animating myself when times got tough to put in the same kind of like, the other people who had a deep connection to storage space did that I didn't, right? So you can use that passion toward a particular problem solution to kind of be your second wind on the days when the going gets tough, and there will be lots of those. So that would be what I would advise there.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great advice. Connor.
Yeah, so you kind of answered this earlier already. Like I had asked the question in chat, and then you kind of went on and answered it. But I'm a big investor in equity crowdfunding companies, in startups through equity crowdfunding. And I was just wondering, from an entrepreneurial side, what you see equity crowdfunding as having just in the future, I guess, and for founders as well. The role
Yeah,
play, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the financial sphere is such bullshit, man. Like, you have to wear a tie and you have to curtsy or whatever it is you do. This is why they don't put me on that side of the table very often.
Yeah.
I just fucking hate it. But what I'll tell you is that the signal from the venture capital space is that crowdfunding of any kind, whether it be it for equity or sales or otherwise, is usually the last refuge of people who can't get funding from serious investors. So I think that's going to change. I mean, obviously there's been some changes to like some SEC regulations and who's allowed to invest and that kind of stuff that took place last year and blah, 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 blah. But right now the halls of finance are closely guarded with people who are way older than me, which and have very little idea how a computer works. Like going digital has just killed the way that we think about fundraising, because these are people who will only talk to you if you're directly in front of them. So it's been like a total like strange world, this nightmare palace we call COVID that we're all trapped in, right? On how do you do these things that require a handshake and a smile in a time when that's not technically possible, right? Anyway, crowdfunding, I think it's good, but if you're starting a venture-backed startup, which means you've got a big market, right? And you're going to need VC cash specifically, aka really expensive capital, but lots of it. And not all businesses are that type, right? So a good thing to know is like, what's the difference between like a lifestyle or a brand business versus like a VC backable business. But if you're going down the VC backable path, if you do it right as a founder, you don't have to worry about fundraising too terribly much, because you get investors in on your books who are going to go out there and raise that money for you. They believe in you. You've got, you're running your team well, you're producing results, and everyone's feeling good about it. A raise is a lot easier for founders who have the right investors on their team, and have good traction if they don't have the right investors on their team to attract the right kinds of investors. The companies that we double down on, when we invest in their seed, and then we'll go and we'll double down on the A, we more or less run that fundraising process for them, right? Because we want to defend our what's called pro rata, which is, I took 6% of your company for 150 grand a couple of years ago. You're going to go out and you're going to raise a $10 million A. Well, great. I'd like 10%. So I got to put in more money, but I also want to work with these people. So I'm bringing my friends to the party. So it is a lot about who you know. And when people can't get that right assemblage of people, a crowd, if you will, then they go to the crowdfunding, right? Because that way the entrepreneur is making an argument based on the passion and the product to people who are less sophisticated than those who, can write a $5 million check, right? But it's, again, you have to do the curtsy and you have to kiss the ring and all this other nonsense. So it's just different places to get different capital. The last thing that I would advise though is, like, generally speaking, a lot of VCs will see crowdfunding on your cap table, your capitalization table, as a negative sign, meaning something bad happened and that's why you couldn't raise again from real investors. Do I agree with that? No. But as always, check your terms and conditions. A lot of times when that kind of stuff screws up, it's because someone fucked up on valuation, which means they valued your company like way too low, which means you gave away a lot of it when you took that crowdfunding deal and you didn't know to ask a better question. And then by the time it comes for your next round, you're screwed because you gave away too much and there's nothing that we can do to recover that value because of the terms of that deal. So make sure you've got a steady hand on the financial advisory side if you're thinking about raising that kind of money, to help you think through the terms that you're about to sign up for. All right, Connor's pleased. Last question.
All right, last question. Sophie.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it brief here on these 2 final minutes. Thank you again. But my question is, you mentioned kind of technical skills. In the startup world, do you think it's better to be a jack of all trades or a master of one?
Oh, I am like generalist supreme, but I've had a fair amount of time doing like, well, let me tell you like this. If you're starting a company, you almost have to be a generalist, right? Because you're solving all the problems and it's you and your friend, right? When we get down to like the A, B, C level, obviously we start to specialize in this place. So if you're a founder CEO, I would say generalist. And the reason why I would say generalist is you want to be able to hire people, basically know how to do the job they're doing more or less. So you can tell if they're like wasting your time and full of shit, right? Because you're never going to have enough money to hire the best people. So you kind of have to deal with what you can afford. And so that means you become very quickly a bullshit artist, right? You can figure out who's lying to you and who's not. And if you're not a startup founder who's going to be in the CEO role, the CTO role, for example, obviously you should be nose down on that. One of the first people to churn from a startup that's up and coming fast is going to be the CTO, because the guy or gal that said, hey, let's start this in your basement, right, is probably not the same person that's going to be like inventing, the technologies that a company at scale is going to need to build. And that's okay. That happens. Roles outgrow people all the time. But this is why comp makes a big difference in how you treat people owning different stakes and different, percentage of the company, all that kind of stuff. So it depends on what you want to be when you grow up. What I like about being a generalist is it's very rare that a startup comes to me, and I interact with probably 2,000 or 3,000 startups a year. It's very rare that a startup comes to me and says, hey, Aaron, this is the problem I'm solving, and I don't immediately have 4 or 5 different, have you tried this, or this? Right? And so that's what makes me excited to do the job that I do, is like, I love figuring that shit out and fast. That's my high, right? Do I want to go in and like code line by line? No, God, never. Can I do it? Yes. Right. So where do you see yourself adding the most value? And like, in terms of like building skill, where do you think you'll be finding yourself most useful. I will never work at a corporate. Never. I briefly worked at Intel. My number was 107656557. And I knew that's all I was ever going to be. Right. I don't want to go in and like get deep in that kind of stuff. So I never prioritize that kind of learning, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Startups come to me, and it's very rare that I see a problem that isn't like something that I've seen before. And so I'll absolutely, jump in, help them solve it, and move on to the next thing. And that's what's fun. Is that helpful?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Right on time too.
Yeah,
great.
That timing was impeccable. All right, those are all the questions. Aaron, thank you so much. That was super insightful, and I know everyone got a lot out of that. Real quick before we wrap it up, a couple announcements. First of all, next week we are doing a club collaboration meeting with the Cal Poly Consulting Club. We are bringing in a recent, a 2016 Cal Poly graduate, Caitlin Henry. She's super dope. She's done a lot of cool stuff, and I'll keep that all secret for next week, but it's gonna be really cool. So again, Tuesday, 6 to 7 p.m. PST, of course, on Zoom, because it is illegal to do otherwise. Other than that, make sure to stay connected. All of our updates about anything and like fun entrepreneurial posts, informative stuff, blog posts, everything you can find linked on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or website. And Kaylin, am I forgetting anything? Because I have a tendency to do so.
Nope, you covered it.
Am I forgetting anything?
No, you're good.
Sweet.
I just added a Slack invite link for those of you who haven't gotten the chance to join our Slack channel. So
yeah, I saw a lot of new faces. We appreciate it. Welcome, and that Slack channel has a lot of very cool opportunities and different channels that you can interact with people in different ways. So yeah, if you want to join a really cool community of entrepreneurs and innovative thinkers and doers, click that link and let's have some fun. Again, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us here at Cal Poly Entrepreneurs. Everyone have an amazing week, and I look very forward to seeing all of you next Tuesday. Some of us will be sticking around, so if you want to stay back and spark a chat, I highly do so. It's been a long day.